Good evening. Welcome to our Good Friday service of Shadows, Tenebrae service. I am Pastor Deborah Porras, and hopefully you did get a bulletin on your way in. You'll see all of the readings that you will need in there as we journey together through this service where we are emotionally drawn into the death of Jesus so that we might prepare our hearts for Easter. Just a few things to highlight for you. We do Easter service on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. and it will be live streamed and in person. And then we have an egg hunt and children's celebration following that on the playground at 11-ish. We also have our carpenter shelter meal that falls on this Easter Sunday, so we are in need of salads and cookies to make sure we have that meal ready for our friends at Carpenter Shelter, and particularly making sure they have a wonderful Easter meal. Also, one reminder, cross up after the service, so by the time Easter is here, we'll invite you to bring flowers so that you can put flowers and decorate our cross out in front of the church with flowers. So please make sure on Sunday to bring flowers by when you come for the service, or at any time during the day if you forget. You can bring flowers and adorn our cross. I will invite you to join me as we continue in worship. You will see all the prayers for you in the bulletin. God is light, in whom there is no darkness at all. Jesus Christ is the light of the world. And this is the judgment, that the light has come into the world, and we love darkness rather than light. Will be followed by a hymn in the worship and song book. Holy Lord, we can truly share only in a limited measure in the suffering of others. We are not Christ, but if we want to be Christians, it means that we are to take part in Christ's greatness of heart. In the responsible action that in freedom seizes the hour and faces the danger. And through sympathy, brings forth not from fear, and dully looking on are not Christian responses. Christians are called to action and sympathy, not solely through our own experiences, but by the immediate experience of others for whose sake Christ suffered. It is infinitely easier to suffer in obedience to a human command than in the freedom of one's very own soul. It is infinitely easier to suffer in community with others than in solitude. It is infinitely easier to suffer publicly and with honor than in the shadows and in dishonor. It is infinitely easier to suffer through putting one's bodily life at stake than to suffer through his spirit. Christ suffered in freedom, solitude, in the shadows, and in dishonor, in body and in spirit. Since then, many Christians have suffered with him. We confess that we have chosen ease over the cause of discipleship, ignorance over action. We have turned away from injustice, all the while knowing Christ's hands and feet are our own. Lord, have mercy on us. Amen. As we enter into the portion of our service where we will have a series of readings followed by extinguishing of candles and then a verse or two of a hymn, I invite you to enter into a state of prayerful reflection as you enter into the story through the scriptures If you feel that you want to simply listen, don't feel compelled to sing. If you feel that you want to sing, join in. It is meant to be an experience to draw you in prayerfully and enter into this journey with our Lord in the way that is most meaningful to you. We will end the service in silence, so following the final reading and extinguishing of candles, there'll be a benediction and we will leave in silence. So when that part comes, you will see that I will leave, and then you may leave in silence at any time. If you would like to remain in prayer, you are invited to do so as well.
From the Gospel of Mark. The shadow of betrayal. Then Judas Iscariot, who was one of the 12, went to the chief priests in order to betray Jesus to them. When they heard it, they were greatly pleased and promised to give him money. So he began to look for an opportunity to betray Jesus. On the first day of unleavened bread, when the Passover lamb is sacrificed, his disciples said to him, "Where do you want us to go and make the preparations for you to eat the Passover?" So the disciples set out and went to the city and found everything as he had told them, and they prepared the Passover meal. When it was evening, he came with the 12, and when they had taken their places and were eating, Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me, one who is eating with me." They began to be distressed and to say to him, one after another, "Surely not I." He said to them, "It is one of the 12, one who is dipping bread into the bowl with me. For the Son of Man goes as it is written of him. But woe to that one by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that one not to have been born."
from the Gospel of Luke, the shadow of the agony of the Spirit and the rest. He came out and went, as was his custom, to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples followed him. When he reached the place, he said to them, "Pray that you may not come into time of trial." Then he withdrew from them about a stone's throw, knelt down and prayed, "Father, if you were willing, remove this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." Then an angel from heaven appeared to him and gave him strength. In his anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down on the ground. When he got up from prayer, he came to the disciples and found them sleeping because of grief. And he said to them, "Why are you sleeping? Get up and pray that you may not come into the time of trial." While he was still speaking, suddenly a crowd came, and the one called Judas, one of the 12, was leading them. He approached Jesus to kiss him, but Jesus said to him, "Judas, is it with a kiss that you are betraying the Son of Man?"
From the book of Luke. They seized him and led him away, bringing him at a distance. When they had kindled him a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat among them. Then a servant girl, seeing him in the fire, stared at him and said, "This man also was with him." But he denied it, saying, "Woman, I do not know him." A little later, someone else seeing him, said, you also are one of them. But Peter said, man, I am not. Then about an hour later, still another kept insisting, surely this man also was with them, for he is a Galilean. But Peter said, man, I do not know what you are talking about. At that moment, while he was still speaking, the cock crowed. The Lord turned and looked at Peter. Then Peter remembered the word of the Lord, how he said to him, before the cock crows today, you will deny me 3 times. And he went away and wept bitterly.
The next reading is from the Gospel of Mark, the shadow of accusation. As soon as it was morning, the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and the scribes and the whole council. They bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He answered him, "You say so." Then the chief priests accused him of many things. Pilate asked him again, "Have you no answer? See how many charges they bring against you." But Jesus made no further reply, so that Pilate was amazed. Pilate hands Jesus over to be crucified. Now that the festival he used to release the prisoners for them, anyone for whom they asked. Now a man called Barabbas was in prison with the rebels who had committed murder during the insurrection. So the crowd came and began to ask Pilate to do for them according to his custom. Then he answered them, "Do you want me to release for you the king of the Jews?" For he realized that it was out of jealousy that the chief priests had handed him over. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have him released Barabbas for them instead. Pilate spoke to them again. "Then what do you wish me to do with the man you call the king of the Jews?" They shouted back, "Crucify him." Pilate asked them, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted to him all the more, "Crucify him!" So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released Barabbas for them, and after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified.
A shadow of mockery, a reading from Matthew. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole cohort around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on his head. They put a reed in his right hand and knelt before him and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They spat on him and took the reed and struck him on the head. After mocking him, they stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him.
Reading from Luke. Shadow of crucifixion. Two others also, who were criminals, were led away to be put to death with him. When they came to the place that is called the Skull, they crucified Jesus there with the criminals, one on his right and the other on his left. Then Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. And they cast lots to divide his clothes. And the people stood by watching. But the leaders scoffed at him, saying, He saved others. Let him save himself, if he is the Messiah of God, his chosen one. The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine, and saying, If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself. There was also an inscription over him, This is the King of the Jews. One of the criminals who was hanging there kept deriding him and saying, Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us. But the other rebuked him, saying, Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we are indeed are being condemned justly, for we are getting what we deserve for our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong. Then he said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And he replied, Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m, while the sun's light failed, and the curtain in the temple was torn in two. Then Jesus, crying with a loud voice, saying, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Having said this, he breathed his last. When the centurion saw what had taken place, he praised God and said, Surely this man was innocent. And when all the crowds who had gathered there for this spectacle saw that it had taken place, they returned home, beating their breast. But all his acquaintances, including the women who had followed him from Galilee, stood there at a distance, watching these things.
the shadow of death. When it was noon, darkness came over the whole land until about 3 in the afternoon. At 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, "Listen, he is calling for Elijah." And someone ran, filled a sponge with sour wine, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink, saying, "Wait, it is to him to drink," saying, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah comes to take him down." Then Jesus gave out a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtain in the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. Now when the centurion, who stood facing him, saw that in this last, he said, "Truly this man was God's son."
The burial of Jesus. After these things, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, though a secret one because of his fear of the Jews, asked Pilate to let him take away the body of Jesus. Pilate gave him permission, so he came and removed his body. Nicodemus, who had at first come to Jesus by night, also came, bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes, weighing about 100 pounds. They took the body of Jesus and wrapped it in with spices in linen cloths, according to the burial custom of the Jews. Now there was a garden in the place where he was crucified, and in the garden there was a new tomb in which no one had ever been laid. And so, because it was the Jewish day of preparation, and the tomb was nearby. They laid Jesus there.
Go now in peace. May Jesus Christ, who for our sake became obedient unto death, even death on a cross, keep you and strengthen you this night and always. Amen.